Welcome to the Coaching Table. I'm Thomas Thompson, Executive Leadership Coach and Consultant with Lead Self, Lead Others. And the Coaching Table is a weekly experience I've created to help leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having so we can keep your story moving forward. These last few coaching tables, we've centered around a conversation sometimes leaders don't have, and that is, how can I find God's direction? How can I understand where God is leading me? If you want to see where we're coming from, it's Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Now, the last two coaching tables, we kind of centered around that last phrase, he will direct your path, and explored what that meant. And then we also looked at what does it mean to lean not on your own understanding and how that could limit us when God is leading us somewhere. And you can find links to both of those as you scroll down below on this email. But this week I want to focus on that question or that statement, trust the Lord with all your heart. Sometimes God is going to call you to a path that will require a lot of trust. Someone asked me this week, how did you know when it was time for you to step out of a senior pastor role and into your new thing? And I said, I know what you're asking, but actually it wasn't that sequential. There was a step long before there was a direction. Let me explain. I've always kind of led the things I've led out of a sense of vision, of understanding here's what the landscape of the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years looks like and how I can kind of take us there. Here's the land we're going to. I'm going to lead us there. But what happened is I reached this one point in my life a couple years ago where I wasn't seeing that vision restart. We had accomplished a lot. We had seen God do great things, but it just seemed like there was this fog around me where I could not see, God, where am I supposed to take this church? Where am I supposed to lead and serve in this church? And I couldn't figure that out. And through conversations with my wife, with the Lord, with our elders and leadership, I began to understand that the reason God wasn't restarting a vision for the future of my leadership in the church was because I wasn't supposed to be leading the church. That he was asking me to step out of that leadership. Well, when I began to understand that, I said, okay, God, that sounds great. Just show me where I'm going to step into and I'll do it. Because as I talked about last week about leaning on your own understanding, one leadership principle that I've kind of always thought about employment is you never leave a job until you have a job, right? You want to have something lined up. That makes sense. That's my own sphere of understanding. But in this case, he was calling me to something outside my sphere of understanding where I felt like God was saying, I'm not going to show you where the land is that you're going until you are willing to step out of this one. That required trust. That was really hard. Stepping away from a people, stepping away from a profession, stepping away from a comfort level of understanding, how to lead, and stepping away from a paycheck and stepping into nothing. It reminds me of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8, when it talks about Abraham and how God had called him to something. And it says, Abraham obeyed. And then it says, going to a land where he didn't know where he was going. He obeyed, took a step to go where he didn't know he was going. I want to encourage you that sometimes God's going to lead us, like we talked about. He's going to direct our paths. He's going to do it through giving us a direct battleship, line towards the target. Sometimes he's going to lead us to some exploratory moves as we sailboat back and forth. We talked about that. Sometimes he's going to call us to look beyond our own sphere of understanding to see what he's up to. But sometimes God's going to call you to something that's going to require trust. To trust the Lord. I want to encourage you to obey him and follow him. Sometimes he's not going to show you the next step until you've taken this one. So here's your coaching table question this week. As you're maybe thinking about your life and the landscape of the future, what next step is God calling you to obey and trust him with? I'd love to help have that conversation with you. You can scroll down and send me an email. I'd love to get some of your thoughts on that as well. Appreciate your time sitting at the coaching table. I'll be back next week with another way that we can lead ourselves well so that we can lead others well. And until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.